Good Chodesh to everyone, and welcome to the Elokus channel. This is class number 9 in the first discourse of Besha'ah Ekdimu 5672. This class all the classes in the first discourse out of the 144 discourses that we are planning to learn is dedicated L'schus Refuah Sheleimo for Avraham Ben Parvin, amongst all the sick of and ill of the Jewish people, and big blessings for his entire family. Thank you. And now we are ready to start. We just started chapter 2 out of the 4 chapters of the first discourse. So we left off in last class. We were talking about that, notwithstanding the fact that Ratzon will is already a connection, it's already the beginning of an opening, it's a pathway already to whatever it is that you have a will towards. The will is already a connector. The will is already an opening of communication between the willer, the desirer, and the desired. Notwithstanding how far they are from each other, the will already makes a connection between them. However, the connection is still hovering. The connection is still distant. It's an makif. You're not yet immersing yourself into it. In order to immerse in, you will have to activate other kochos, other powers. As we shall see, you have to activate what's called the pnimiyim. You'll get involved and you'll activate one's intelligence into the subject matter, into the person, into the project, into the experience, into whatever it is that you're looking for and seeking for with this will. That's when you start getting into it into its inner space. However, just by wanting it, you're just hovering over it and encompassing it. And in order to understand this concept of the makif, of will, of keser, which is ratzon, and ratzon, which is will, and will is an encompassing surrounding energy, he begins to contrast it with the pnimi, with the internal light. The internal light we discussed are all the other powers. The power of intelligence is an internal power. The power of emotion is an internal power. The power of vision is an internal power. Power of hearing is an internal power. And many of the other powers, functions of a person. They are internal powers. What that means, internal, is that the light enters into a vessel. It's or bekeli, it's light in a vessel. And the vessel matches the light. It is commensurate, is compatible with the light. That means, since the energy of intelligence is very different style of energy than the energy of an emotion. Emotion is fiery, it's full of excitement. And intelligence is watery. It's calm. It flows in a calm way. That's why the vessel, the container, which would be the physical brain versus the physical heart, is a very different type of a container. The heart is pumping always. It's always in a state of excitement. It always has movement. We didn't learn this. He doesn't say this openly in the discourse yet. I'm just using this as an example. The heart, for instance, is moving. It's red. It implies this intensity, and the brain is gray, more like the color of water. And and there's no movement in the brain. Sure, there's electrical pulses, but it's very, very subtle. It doesn't have the same activity like the heart, because it has to match the calmness of the mind. And so is with each vessel. The eye, as we learned, is a translucent type of a material, a glassy type of material, or a glossy type of a material, which fits with the spiritual power of vision. The ears are structured in a way of a canal in which it can intake sound, and so on and so forth. Although you're not hearing with the physical ear, you're hearing with the power of hearing that one has in the soul, but it manifests and it finds itself a vessel in the ears. So is in the intestines, digesting, and so it is in the lungs with the breathing, and so it is in every power of the person. Okay, that's what we're learning. We're about 5 lines into chapter 2. Okay, let's go over here. And just like the power of vision, will never exchange. The power of vision won't enclose itself. The spiritual power of vision will never activate itself in the ear. And the power of hearing will not activate itself through your eyes. You will never hear through your eyes. We will see later that by the giving of the Torah, there was exchange of experiences, but he will address that in quite a while. He will address that idea. But by Matan Torah, it says they heard the sights and they saw the sounds. But that's going to be later. But that's not ordinary. That's trying to say how crazy it was by the giving of the Torah. But on a regular basis, each experience happens in its designated, prepared space. And so to the intelligence, it encloses itself only in the brain, shabarosh, that's in the head, and not in the other limbs. Now he's going to say that there's an exception to that. It seems that there's an exception to that. We're saying that what? That intelligence only happens in the mind, not in any other part of the body. Your hands and your feet do not experience intelligence. Your fingers don't think. Your toes do not have epiphanies. It's the brain that has the epiphany. Yes, but he says, but we're going to challenge that. What's the challenge? We do find that there is an enclosement of intelligence also in the hand and in the feet, in the leg, like when someone writes letters. In other words, the hand is the place, the physical hand is the place for movement, the arm, the hands, in which we have our power of action, the power of activity, to do something, to make something. Now, that power can come in a very, very unintelligent form, like picking up a box. I mean, you need strength, but you don't need much intelligence to do it, or moving, pushing something, moving something. It's pretty simple. It's pretty raw. An animal that has a power of action can also do the same thing. But then there are more sophisticated movements of the hand, which are, we might say, intelligent movement. For example, when you are writing is a form of an art. Writing letters, as he says. When you're writing letters, any type of letters, writing the ABC, writing the Aleph Beis, especially if you're a sofer and you're able to write beautiful letters, if you're able to write calligraphy, you're able to write design letters in a really, really, really beautiful manner, then of course it's more already a piece of art. It's an intelligence of the hand, of the fingers. There is already a seichel. There's more than just movement over here. And that's in addition to the fact that doesn't make a difference what you're writing. Right? You can be writing the absolute foolishness. You can be writing meaningless sentences, but it can still be artistic. If just the fact that you're writing, you're putting down letters, the movement is very fine. Again, a monkey can't do that. An animal can't do that. A human hand can do that, because the human hand can facilitate intelligent movement. But in addition to that, he says, you can be writing a scientific paper. That means you're writing a thought of Torah, and it can be a brilliant thought of Torah. So that means that's for sure intelligent writing, which means you are channeling intelligence, ideas, intellectual ideas. You're challenging it. Channeling it. I'm sorry. You're channeling it through your fingers, through your hand, through the writing. He says, but over there, it's only that it's passing through. In other words, the intelligence is not in the stroke of the finger. The intelligence is in the ideas that's ending up on the paper, the thought, the concept, the art, the hand itself doesn't need to be intelligent. For the hand, for the movement of the arm, it really makes no difference if you're writing the most utter foolishness or you're writing brilliant ideas. It's the artistic ability of the hand is absolutely the same. It's utilizing the same Aleph Beis, it's utilizing the same ABC. So in terms of the arm, it doesn't make a difference what is being passed on. So that's not considered that the arm or the hands are intelligence. However, the intelligence over here is that the arm itself is trained to write in a specific manner. And he's going to add how much more so when you're actually an artist, and people who can paint with the stroke of their hand, they can do amazing things. That's, of course, a form of intelligence that is manifesting or expressing itself not in your head, but in your hand. Obviously, your head is very focused and the head is very involved in it, But the intelligent movements are the movements, and not every person can do it because not everybody has such fine motor skills and such trained movement to be able to do that. So that's definitely intelligence. So now he says it. This is in addition that the intellectual ideas of the great Talmudist, the great thinker, the great scientist, that you can put that down and write it in a book. That's coming through the hand, to bring the light of the intelligence into a writing. So that is not such a question, because that, as we said earlier, it's only going through the hand. It's not in any way. It's like if someone said like this: does it make a difference? The mailman is delivering. He can deliver mail, a piece of mail that's plain and absolute rubbish, an absolute, just a silly flyer for a restaurant that's opening up around the corner, a Chinese restaurant, or he can be delivering. The mailman can be delivering the most, a letter, or a letter that contains the deepest secrets of the universe, right? And to them, is it any difference to the feet of the courier, of the mailman, what he is carrying? It doesn't make a difference. It's not like you need more training to carry that letter or to carry the junk mail. It doesn't make a difference. The same is also to the hand. Once the hand knows how to write, whether the person has something meaningful to write or whether they're writing foolish things, it doesn't make a difference. The same art. That's what we're saying. The same movement. So that would not challenge the notion that intelligence belongs in the brain. It has its particular vessel and it can't move into any of the other limbs. However, what will challenge the notion that intelligence belongs in the gray matter of the head and not in the coarser matter of the hands and the fingers, what is from the very fact that a person can write. And in writing itself, there is many levels of writing. And the more a person trains their arms, which means the more intelligence there is in the arm can do really, really magnificent forms of writing. That's what he says. The fact that you're channeling and you're passing through an idea, that's only crossing through the hand. Stated elsewhere. But therefore, that will not be an objection to the idea that we said before. However, the very form of the letters, in this, there is intelligence. This is the art of writing, which it itself is a form of art. It's a form of wisdom. Or especially people that are artists, which is a very, very great wisdom. It's an incredible talent. And he calls artistic talent is a form of wisdom. And in general, and it's not only writing, it's any type of craftsmanship that there is in the hand. People that can produce most magnificent, a smith, a goldsmith who can make the most intricate, most beautiful jewelry, or the most beautiful, carvings or statues or whatever it is that a person can do with their hands. That's the craftsmanship of a piece of art. This is not only in the power. In other words, it doesn't begin in the hand, it begins in the head. It's not just the power of movement. It's not just fine motor skills. The fine motor skills are directed by the intelligence. It's not as if, it really is the brain in this individual, the mind in this individual doesn't remain upstairs in the head. It descends down a couple of floors. It goes all the way down to the fingers. It's as if you have brains, mindfulness in the fingers, in the hand. It sources in the intelligence. The person has a chush. Chush means an artistic talent. In handwork, in writing, or in painting, or in weaving, or in embroidery. Sewing and embroiderers can do magnificent work. Like we know when they made the Mishkan, they did incredible work with that was done in the embroidery of the tapestries of the Mishkan. Look in Rambam. I didn't check it out, but in Rambam in Shemaine Prakim, which is his introduction to, I think, Masechta Sanhedrin. Over there, the Rambam explains various different levels of intelligence. And he calls this one of the forms of intelligence, Perik Aleph. And the same is also there is, and even in the feet, we think, okay, the intelligence can get down to the hand. It can even go down to the feet. There are people who are exquisite dancers, and that means that they know how to move their legs artistically to such fine music, to such fine movements, or skaters, or whatever the like. People who are incredible in their abilities to move. They have so refined the movements of their legs to be so it's intelligent. It's an intelligent movement. It's an art. Says, so now this seems to counter that which we said before, that intelligence is a koach pnimi, wisdom and knowledge is an internal power, and it needs a particular container that matches it. And which container is that? That's the brain. And it does not go into another container that's not meant for it. So the Rebbe says, I am holding my ground. It's true. Intelligence can only manifest, the power of intelligence can only be in the brain, not in any other limb, which is not fitting for it. How then does the intelligence reach the hand or the feet? The intelligence does not directly go into the hand. Intellect can only go into the gray matter of the head, only in the brain. However, what can happen is like this. The intellect that manifests and kind of makes contact and gets assimilated into the physical experience through the brain, that power, the power of intelligence, can now be vested and garb itself in the lower power, in the power of movement, in the power in the motor power of a person. So a person has motor power. The motor power left to its own device as it is only going to be very general. It's not going to be specific. It's not going to be detailed. It's not going to be very refined. So when the power of intelligence that has vested itself in the brain has the ability for it to dilute itself, as we're soon going to see, it's not the power itself. It dilutes itself, and it can influence, it can send out some of its power that can then be invested in the power of motorization, which the power of motorization, the power of movement, that goes into the hand and into the feet. And that power can either be a power of motorization itself, or it can be a power of motorization that includes within it, that has vested in it, the power of intelligence. And then the motor skills of the person becomes more refined skills. In a hislapsha zois, this hislapshus, this enclothement, it's not in the limbs itself of the hand and the feet. If the intelligence would try to speak to the fingers, it would not be able to communicate. The intelligence cannot directly, will not get a response. The hands, the feet, the fingers are not vessels, and they don't have the receptors to be able to receive communication from the mind. What they do have is they're programmed to be able to receive the motor, the power of motorization, as we said. I don't know if that's a word, but whatever it is, we're making it up for the sake of the Maamor. The power of movement that is applicable, or that can fits, it's compatible with the hands and the feet. However, what kind of motorization? Is it going to be just pure unrefined motorization, or is it going to be sophisticated motorization? Intelligent motorization means that the power of the intelligence is able to filter down some energy and send some intelligent juices, and to juice up the power of movement, the power of motoring. And then that power of motoring is now a more refined power. It doesn't become enclosed in the limbs, it becomes enclosed in the power that goes in the limb. Which in them is the power of movement, that's in the hand, and the power of movement that's in the power of walking that's in the feet. And this idea is another idea. It's what? Hislapshus hakoichos zeh bezeh. The spiritual powers of the soul are able to vest themselves one into the other. And that's also due to the fact that they are internalized powers, which means that they are self-controlled powers. They're not, they're not limitless powers. They are constricted powers. And because of their constriction, because of their very much programmed to limit themselves, they're able to condition themselves and limit themselves even more, where they can reduce themselves to go into to be able to then influence a lower power. As we're going to see, there are certain powers in the soul that do not lend themselves to limitation. They do not accept any boundaries. They're too powerful, or they don't limit themselves. And as a result of that, they have to remain super powerful, super enforcing, and they cannot diminish themselves. And for that very reason, they're limited in where they can go. Like the sweeping power of will, because will is so powerful, has to be a domineering power over the entire body from head to feet equally, because it doesn't have the patience, or it doesn't have the self-control to diminish itself. However, intelligence is one of the internalized powers of the person, and in that, by it being an internalized power, which the whole idea of internalized powers means that they acclimate themselves, that they seek out a vessel, they seek out a container to limit them, to narrow them down. So part of that skill is to actually also limit themselves and acclimate themselves, or rather simpler, adjust themselves to a lower level. So because they're internalized powers, they're able to be enclosed, one into the other. The higher superior power, mislabish, becomes enclosed in a lower power, umanhigo, and takes control over it and leads it, which means elevates it, picks it up. That the motorization of the person shouldn't only be a motor skill, it should be an intelligent motor skill. However, this power for one koach to be able to enclose itself in another koach, this unique power, is hudavke, he says this in the parentheses, hudavke kasher hakochos melubashim b'kelim. This only happens when these powers are vested in vessels, which means the powers of the soul, the power of vision, the power of hearing, the power of intelligence, the power of emotion, all these powers, they exist in a divested state. They exist in the soul itself as pure energy, and they also exist when they come down and manifest inside their vessels. So what he's saying is over here, this ability for the kochos to be able to limit themselves and thereby one power can vest itself into another power, can only happen when they are in a manifest state into their vessels. However, when they are in an abstract state, probably it's due to the fact that they're too intense, similar to the power of will, and they do not vest themselves one in the other. Each one remains in their own turf. Each one remains in their own space. This subject is not discussed over here. He explains it elsewhere. Now, however, what we need to understand is, so number one, we already answered the question. This, that we see that sometimes one power can vest itself in another power, doesn't mean that the power of intelligence can influence the hands and the feet. It's not that it can go directly into a organ and a limb that's not its partner, that's not its vessel. It cannot do that. But what could happen is the spiritual powers, where one power can vest itself into a lower power, and that power, with the vested in higher power, is now enclosed in its appropriate limb, which in this case would be the hands and the feet, and then they are doing artistic stuff. If that's the case, but now he adds another point. Even then, we have to realize that the intelligence that gets down to the hand and feet is a much lesser kind of intelligence than the intelligence when the intelligence is taking place in the head, in the brain. And this that becomes enclosed in the lower powers, where the intelligence is not operating in as pure intelligence, but via and through and enclosed in another power. It's only a ray of the higher power, and not the essence of the power. Like happens in the limb that is fitting for it. That means you can't compare the power of intelligence that is taking place in the head, where you're sitting and you're pondering and contemplating deep thoughts in whichever subject it might be, or the intelligence as it's moving downward into various different other powers to enlighten them. It's a much lesser power. It's an external ray of the power. And you can see it very strongly is in the power of the intelligence. This that the mind, the intelligence encloses itself in the power of movement, or the power of walking, that's in the hand and in the leg. It's not the truth and the substance of the power of the intelligence that is enclosed in the brain of the head. It's not its substance. That this enclosement, it's only the intelligence of action, which the intelligence of action, of doing, of Maisa, of action, is a far inferior intelligence to the intelligence of pure abstract intelligence. Lavad. In the intelligence itself, it's the most neither power of the mind. Is the lowest, most inferior power of the intelligence. If you can have intelligence rung up by 10 levels, so this from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, this would be the lowest power, the one element of the intelligence. Even though this too is contained in the power of the intelligence, and it's not that it starts in the hand. That means that in the brain itself, in the intelligence that is in the mind, it has contained and hidden inside of it the power to be able to for artistic creation, physical artistic creation. So it's not when the intelligence reaches the hand, that's when it becomes artistic talent. The artistic talent is already in the brain, in the mind, but it's still the most neither or the lowest element of the intelligence. It's not the substance of the intelligence of the head. Because even, he says, because even when intelligence goes to its closest neighbor, what's the closest neighbor to intelligence? The power that's very close to it is emotion. Emotion is pretty high up in the human experience, very close to intelligence. Even then, it's not the essence and the substance of the intelligence. The atzmas haseichel, because the essence of the intelligence, is to conceive and understand the deepest abstract thoughts, the nilim and elevated, she'enim shayches lamidas klal, that don't have a relationship to emotions. And in everything, to get to the very, very essence of something, not to the subjective outcome of it, but to the essence of it as it is above emotions. We are going to leave this last thought as a Hashem for next class. Everybody have a wonderful Shabbos and a wonderful new month.